And so the great surrender of the self into itself. There has to be a turning inward in order for the self to know itself. For consciousness to know itself, it has to be absorbed in itself. This is why you cannot find yourself in the world, in things. Consciousness has to turn inward, has to be fully absorbed in itself to know itself. Sounds so obvious. And so why all that looking? Why all that looking in things? The surrender, the living surrender that is being here now. There's a living surrender to being here, to just simply being here, being yourself. It is a surrender to let go of all of the habits and conditionings, all of the learned ways of being. It takes humility, and it is a surrender. The surrendered life is to be surrendered into now, into the divine, into not knowing, into just being, where there are no wants and desires for the me. That in true surrender, there's the recognition that it is just about receiving divine grace, receiving everything as divine grace. You cannot be picky, cannot be picky about what you are receiving. It's about receiving everything equally. Receiving everything equally is surrendering into that which is true, surrendering into the flow of grace, receiving everything as the flow of grace, surrendering all wants, needs, desires, surrendering opinions and judgments, surrendering evaluation and analyzing according to the me, surrendering it all into the flow of grace that is carrying everything. Surrendering everything that makes up the me so that the attention can turn into the now so fully, into the presence that is so fully. And this is the turning inwards. This is the turning into yourself. Consciousness turning into itself. Being absorbed in only itself. Just being here now. And in this being here, the being can know itself on the level of being. Consciousness can recognize its own nature in the field of consciousness. Surrender feels like an effort until you come to recognize that your true nature is surrender, that it's completely and utterly natural to be living surrender. There's nothing more natural, nothing more clear, more open, more pure than being living surrender. It is effortless and easeful when you are resting in the being. It feels like effort to the me to keep surrendering, to keep letting go. But if there is not a mind that is evaluating, if there is not a mind that has ideas, is not qualifying the moment according to the me, if everything is just happening, and there is this open allowing, this surrender, then it is effortless, it is simple. Surrender the doer into being. Surrender the doer into being. There needs to be somebody to want things to be a certain way. True nature does not have wants and does not have needs. It is just a flow of life living itself, consciousness experiencing itself, just simply being itself. You see, it's so simple to be yourself. There's no effort involved for life to just live itself. It is to see that it is only the mind that can get in the way. Of course, it doesn't really get in the way. Life is still just living itself. Life is not bothered by what the mind is thinking. The being is not bothered by what the mind is thinking. But if the attention is with the mind and the mind is being nourished, the feeling we could say that you will have will be feeling the disturbance, but the being is not disturbed. Life is not disturbed. Life is living itself without condition, happily, dancing along, just living itself. Consciousness just experiencing itself, not evaluating, not judging, just simply living itself. So it is to be here now. Even to be here now is to fall into the flow of divine surrender. To be here so fully, to be so fully present here now, where the attention is not wandering here and there, following the thoughts, following the mind's meanderings, that the attention rests. The attention rests. It's the same as turning inward. It is just being here, just being here, just as you are. The felt sense of being, the felt sense of simple, silent being. Just being here, just as you are. To feel the simplicity of existence that is right here. To feel that existence has no name, no story, no agendas, no needs. That the felt sense of existence is so incredibly simple. Can you feel how existence wants nothing? Can you feel how existence just is? The isness of existence just simply being. To be so simple that you are life living itself, just as you are. Nothing else is wanted. There are no strategies that are needed. Everything that is happening, even if the mind wants to take ownership, there's nobody that owns anything. It's impossible. Ah, who owns it all? It is God. It is love. It is the divine that owns it all. So when we are in alignment with the God nature, with the love that we are, then we are free. Can see there is no differentiation, there is no separation. There is nothing to fragment or divide. Everything just is as it is. It's so simple. It's so beautiful. Can you feel how beautiful it is? Fall into the beauty. Fall into the simple beauty of this moment just as it is. Just being here, wanting nothing, having no expectations of this moment, having no expectations of this meeting, having nothing to do, just to be here so fully that you can feel your beingness as all there is. Nothing to learn, nothing to achieve, nothing to get, nowhere to journey, just to be here. To be here, feel the beauty, be happy, be simple, be the joy that is, be the peace that is undisturbable. Be yourself. And so this surrender that says yes to everything. Love says yes to everything because love knows only love. Yes, a true yes has no opposite. Yes is the language of love, loving itself, in devotion to itself, in surrender to itself, falling into itself, ever deeper, ever clearer, ever purer. Be the light by which clear seeing sees. Be the light by virtue of which clear seeing sees. The light that is not a thing, the light that is pure illumination. It is the self shining in and as itself, self-luminous, self-aware, shining, shining, shining. This incredible radiance of the self, the radiance of the heart. This is the light that is illuminating everything. Be the light that is illuminating everything. Do not fall into identification with form. Be the light that is flowing, animating, illuminating everything. Mm. Mm. When you feel yourself here now, you feel the simplicity of existence itself. We could say your own existence, but when you feel your own existence, you are feeling the one existence, but you are not feeling it on any kind of personal level. You are feeling the being. Feeling the being is being the being. You are experiencing your own beingness. And the being is infinite, unbounded. The being is everywhere. The being is eternal and timeless. So the being is here now. The being is so fully here now, so fully here now, that it knows nothing else but now, this now that is so pristine, so clear, so silent, so alive with its own presence. And this presence is the truth of who you are. So as these words come, it is to feel the resonance, receive the pointing in the immediacy of now. Receive the pointing here in the location-less infinity that is the boundless being, that is the one true nature, that is existence itself. Feel that your true nature, the one true nature, is not identified at a singular point. When you come to the felt sense of being existence itself, you feel that you are everywhere. You are not contained, you are not limited, and you are not defined or definable in any way. It is through coming to the felt sense, you come to the felt sense of being. We could say the felt sense of existence. We could say the felt sense I am. Doesn't matter what the words are, just to be here. Just to be here. To be here so fully that the fullness of your presence is alive. This is where consciousness can recognize itself because it is absorbed in itself. It is inward. We are in the landscape of consciousness, the one consciousness. And when you are here, resting as the being itself can recognize its own beingness here in the realm of the innermost being. The innermost being is not separate. The innermost being is the infinite, unbounded field. So we could say going inward, going inward, going into yourself in surrender, letting go of all of the things that want to distract, that habitually do distract, letting go and just coming to the felt sense of being, coming to the felt sense of being here, and the surrender into being, the letting go. You cannot do surrender. You can just come to the felt sense of being, and surrender happens. Surrender is the naturalness of falling through the cracks between the things into the vast, infinite landscape of consciousness. The landscape of light, the light of consciousness is here waiting to illuminate itself, right? The light of consciousness. It has been illuminated by the divine. The divine light lights up consciousness, and the light of consciousness is here illuminated. A light-filled field where the self knows itself. It is waiting to ignite, illuminate itself at every point that seems not to be illuminated. But Any point that seems not to be illuminated, it is still the light. It is just turning away. The attention is just turned away. So when the attention is turned away, it seems like that point is not illuminated. So, invitation here now. Turn towards yourself. Receive the light. Receive the grace. Be filled with the light that is the light that is true. Be filled with light. Where is that light? Is it in you? Is it outside you? Are you the light? Are you that which is illuminating everything? What are you? This light, it is not like a light that you switch on and off. It is a light that is ever presently beaming, shining its radiance in and of itself, always, eternally. This radiance, this brilliance is the heart. It is the heart that is the self. It is the same as unconditional love that is ever shining, ever shining. So to be here, to turn inward, to be the living surrender, the self surrendering into itself, catching the wind of the perpetual flow, self surrendering into itself. Life living itself in constant surrender into itself, falling into itself, experiencing itself, but never attached, constantly flowing, constantly moving. So this receiving of all of life as it flows, no differentiation, no wanting, no needing. This surrender that surrenders to everything, receives everything equally. This perpetual yes, perpetual surrender. Yes and yes and yes and yes. Constantly saying yes to itself. Never bargaining, never leaving itself. The holy union, the holy communion. So as these words come, it is just to receive the resonance, receive the pointing here now. Feel where you feel that flow of life, where you feel the yes, where you feel the being, just being. And be here, be here. Do not try to understand, do not try to make sense. Just be here. Just be here and be carried. Recognize that the surrender is a surrender into being carried. It is a surrender of your individuality, your sense of individuality, your sense of being separate, to surrender the individual point into the infinity of your true nature. Surrendering that singular point into the infinite wilderness that just is. Who is there to want? Who is there to need? Who could ever even want anything other than what God wants? Can we see how that creates resistance? Can we see how that creates suffering? If you want something different than what God wants. But why? Why? Because it has become habitual to suffer. It is the habit of the me to suffer, to resist, to want things my way. So we illuminate the habits of the me. We illuminate all the ways that we can create suffering by disagreeing with the divine plan, by saying no to God, by saying no to love, by saying no to life. No, I want it this way. I want it this way because this way is the way that I can feel happy and satisfied. But this is not what it is about. This is not what it is about. And this is the perpetual surrender, to be constantly catching all the ways that we want things to be different, the ways that we resist the flow of life. The me is a mechanism that will always resist. It's a protective, defensive, wanting machine. It's also a denial machine. So let us just see that and smile. Let us smile because the great glory is that is not who you are. That is not who you are. You are not the wanting machine. You are not the denying machine. You are the truth. You are the truth teller. You are the one that is ever free, unprotected. You are the one being that is free of all of that in truth, here now. You are the flow of life living itself. You are not the story. You are not the obstacles. You are not the stickiness. You are not the patterning of consciousness. You are consciousness itself. And it is in this coming to this moment, being here so fully, falling into yourself, the surrender into this moment, the surrender into being here, turning inward, so the self can know itself, so the being can be resting, absorbed in itself. Cannot know yourself if you are away from yourself. You have to be here, turned inward, turned towards yourself, so the light can shine and the truth and the glory can shine. It's knowing right here. It's so simple. It's so beautiful. Can you catch the resonant fragrance of that beauty? Can you catch the perfume that is happiness, is joy, is love? Can you catch the wind of truth flowing, breezing by and catching you, inviting you in? Can you feel the truth of your own knowing? Can you feel that the knowing is who you are, that you are the being? There is such a simplicity to being yourself. Complexity is of the mind. Complexity is the mind's creation. Tangles itself up in knots, trying to get what it thinks it wants, what it thinks it needs. Even around spirituality and awakening, if the mind tries to get involved, it will act as the very obscuring mechanism, turning away from the light, turning away from the light, turning away from the light. It is to be the light by turning to this moment through being here now, being here. realizing that the light is always on. The light is always on. Where are you? Where are you? To be here now, to feel the simple felt sense of being here. Fall into yourself, the surrender into yourself, the surrender into being here now. To feel the stillness, the silence, the simplicity of being. Feel the deep relaxation that it is. For awareness to relax, attention to relax, so that awareness can be only aware of itself just being here. To feel the presence of the aware being that you are. Nothing else, just this. Be aware of what is moving and changing, but do not leave this deep resting. Do not leave the deep resting. Be here so fully. The surrender of the story, the surrender of wanting, surrender of denial, surrender of needing. Just being here, just being here. The instruction is so incredibly simple, but it is so simple that the mind comes in to try to make it more complicated. The mind wants things to do. The mind wants to know how. The mind wants to question and doubt. The mind wants to know, is this it? Right? But everything that the mind wants to get involved in is only mental activity. It is not the truth of who you are. The being is just being here. The being, the aware being, is aware of the mind and its meanderings, but the being is not touched. The being is just here being itself, completely free. The being is still, silent, simple awareness, just aware of itself. And there is a knowing in the being. The being knowing its own beingness is an aliveness. The knowing is alive. The knowing is so alive that it shines. It shines as a radiant, radiant heart that is flowing as unconditional love. Just being here. Just being here. Saying yes and yes and yes to what is truly longed for. Saying yes and yes and yes to the truth of who you are. Telling the truth and not denying. Mm. Resting here in the silence, the whisper, the silent whisper of the being, recognizing its own nature, remembering in the deep realm of the innermost being, this is who you are. You never have been a separate individual. You never have been the mind and the story, the name and the form. Have never been the body. Have always been the self. It is just to be here so fully. Feel the resonance of remembering, the resonance of remembering that is so alive in the presence of being. And you feel the resonance it is to be here so fully with the resonance, so intimate with yourself. Do not leave yourself. Be here so fully in the most profound intimacy with yourself. Feel the wholeness, the richness, feel the perfection and beauty that is here in this moment where there is no story, no distraction. There is nothing other than yourself, the one self, the self of all, the self that stands alone. Be the light that is ever shining, self-luminous being, knowing itself, shining, shining, shining in the pure and simple, immaculate knowing of itself. It's right here. It is a vast, infinite, boundless field of being. Right here now, the timeless being that has no story, has no past, has no future, is just here so fully. Not someone that is present to this moment, but presence itself is who you are. Presence itself is who you are. Being so present to yourself that you can feel the truth of who you are in the presence, in the silent presence of simply being yourself and shining, shining, shining as the true glory that you are, the beauty that you are, the magnificence that you are. Feeling the aliveness that is happy, joyful, simple. We could say content. Essentially, it is a bliss that is peaceful, contentment. There is an effervescent aliveness to the bliss of knowing yourself, because everything else has fallen away and you are here so fully. There is an equanimity, an openness, and a simplicity. And yet in the equanimity, there is a blissfulness. In the emptiness, there is a blissfulness. It's pure bliss, pure bliss. And to feel this simple, blissful nature of just being is the nectar that you want to come into such intimacy with, because this nectar, this blissful nectar, is what carries the being deeper into itself, carries the being deeper into divine remembering of its own nature. So as these words come, it's not to try to understand, not to evaluate, not to measure. It's to just feel the truth where you feel the resonance, where you feel the resonance, just to say yes, just to say yes, just to say yes to being here so fully, resonating so fully as the self, knowing itself, shining, 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 illuminating itself. Such a radiance, such a brilliance, that this light is shining, shining, shining in the knowing of itself. It is to catch the light, be illuminated, and as you are illuminated, everything disappears into this vast illuminated field of light. Can feel the light in the body, can feel the light outside of the body, because that light is the flow of life. That light is life itself. You see, life is not a story. Life is a flow of resonant light. Dancing, dancing, dancing. Mm. Mm. Nothing other than this. Nothing other than this. You see how quick the mind wants to reference past, future. You see how quickly the mind wants to go somewhere else, just to watch it, just to watch it, and recognize that as the being, you go nowhere. You are just here, just here. As you feel the felt sense of the knowing is alive, and the knowing flows as life. So, it is just to feel the being that is still and silent, and the knowing of the being knowing itself is this flow, this aliveness, and the aliveness is flowing as life. Flowing from the silent source, returning to the silent source, made of the fabric of the silent source, which is bliss. It is all there is. Everything that is appearing as the world is created out of your own consciousness. Created out of your own consciousness. So consciousness, the one consciousness that is not separate from itself in any way, anywhere, can experience itself so fully, so richly, in order to know itself in and as everything. Mm. Mm. And so this flow of life is a flow of perpetual surrender, life surrendering into itself. So you see the point value that you are, the point value of the infinite field that you have believed yourself to be as a separate one, right? There is a point value that you know. You could say it feels like your individuality, it feels like your uniqueness. It is to feel that the point value is not a separate someone. The point value is one of the infinite points, and you are the infinite field. in your true nature. You are the infinity and you are the point. You are the infinity and you are the point. Infinity and the point, completely and utterly inseparable, right? So the point, the unique point value, you're not the mind body as the point value, right? Let us be clear about that. But the point value, it's one point of the infinite field. So in the surrender of your individuality, the surrender of the attachment and belief that you are the mind body, you surrender into the being the point value. And when you surrender into being the point value, you can feel yourself, you can feel the expansion. You start to realize that you have surrendered the singular point into the infinite field, that you are the infinite field. You are the infinite field, but there is a living of this infinity and bringing it to the surface. The point value is the service vehicle, right? Mm-hmm. Mm. The point value knows its infinite nature. The point value knows that it is a vehicle of service. The point value knows that this is all a dream. The point value knows its absolute wholeness. The point value knows only love, knows its true nature as love. And the point value knows that it is never separate in any way from the infinite field that it is. Hmm. Hmm. The point value is how the divine gets to the surface. It's how the divine dances on the surface of life. Through its point values, it expresses itself. It lives right on the surface of life, shining, dancing. And so you see, we're not here to take it all so seriously. We're here to enjoy. We're here to see the very light side of life. Mm. So as these words come, it is never to try to understand. It is never to make sense. It is to feel where they are coming from, what they are pointing to, and to catch the breeze. Jump in, be carried deeper into yourself, and flow as life, flow as life. You see, when you are flowing as life, you are receiving everything equally. Can see that everything that is appearing is just a dance of light. It is just consciousness experiencing itself. We could say even deeper than that, it is God dancing with God. It is the divine, it is pure divinity dancing its divinity, shining its divinity, to be more accurate. Divinity can only shine because divinity is only light. Mm. 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 Can you feel the light shining? There's only one light. It is the light of the self shining in and of itself. It is the radiance of the heart It is the light of love. It is the light of consciousness, the light of awareness. It is the light that just is, shining, 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 ever, ever shining. The light is everywhere. The light is moving and animating the form. But you might feel light here. Can sometimes feel like is it inside your head? Is it inside your eyes? Is it outside? Are your eyes seeing the light? Can feel like all of these possibilities. But if you try to grasp it and understand it, or if you try to, the mind says, oh, I think it's my third eye. It's my third eye is open and illuminated. In a way, there's a sort of truth to that. Because when you are completely open, resting as the being, resting as the light of being, that light is, it's the life force, it's the pranic value, right? But it's coming in and animating the form, but you can't quite get your hands on it. You can't quite work out whether it's inside or outside, because it's nothing. It's not physical. It's not physical. It's not of the body, and yet that which feels to be the body is touched and being animated by it. So there's different ways that you start to experience it. It starts to be experienced, let's say, starts to experience itself. So just bringing awareness, because there is a beauty in feeling the transmission of light. The transmission of light is clear seeing, clearly seeing who you are, the truth of who you are, illuminated, the being itself, knowing itself, illuminated in its own knowing. And there is a lightness, a brightness, a brilliance, a radiance, right? An effulgence to this light, an upwelling, dancing of this light, sparkling, shimmering, glimmering. It's a field of light. You are the field of light, but let us say that your vision is turned inwards when you are recognizing yourself. So even though eyes seem to be looking outwards, your vision is turned inward. And so the inner vision of the being seeing itself, knowing itself, the illumination of that is then shining as the infinite field that you feel to be in your eyes. But it's not in your physical eyes, it's the eye, the illumination of what I truly is. And you can feel it. You can feel it. You can see it illuminated, but you cannot tell where it is, because it is here now and it is everywhere. It is an infinite field of light. The illumination is the knowing. The illumination is the true nature. The self illuminated in its own nature, that's shining. It's self-luminous. It's radiating its own light, the light of knowing, the light of being. So do not look for light, be the light. Just as you cannot look for the being, you cannot look and try to find. You can only be the living aliveness, the living knowing, the living being, the living illuminated principle, the light by virtue of which everything seems to appear. So, just being here, just being here as the wide open, radiant heart that is the self, being self-aware, aware being, radiantly shining, luminous, self-luminous, falling into the luminosity, falling into the light, falling into the radiant shining of your own knowing. Feeling that light illuminating every single atom and nanoatom of your being, coming alive with the pranic light, the aliveness of life, the aliveness of life, shimmering and glimmering everywhere, touching everything. It's touching and illuminated equally in every single cell of your physiology, just as it is every single point of the infinite field is illuminated with its own presence of knowing. You are full of light, full of glory, full in the fullness of the true being that you are. Just to be here, simply being. Feel yourself being here. Feel the resonance as these words come. Feel the resonance and be here, so intimate with yourself, so intimate with your own shining presence. Do not try to understand. Do not try to make a journey out of this. Do not try to make an idea of a possible destination. Scrap it all and just be here. Just be here, so fully shining as the light of being that you are, the shining radiant heart of being, grounded in and of its own presence. Silent, still presence of being. The presence of being that in the knowing of itself is wildly alive and flowing. And that aliveness, it's shining, it's animating everything, enlivening everything. The light that is never dimmed or diminished, the light that is immaculate and pure, the light that is love, the light that is God, the light that is divine in its purity,